Danielle, we are just about done with our seller process series. And
Absolutely.
today we're talking about packing and moving, getting out of there.
Yes. So obviously, it's very easy for any seller to click on Google and ask, packing tips and things like that, and moving out and all of that. And so we didn't waste their time per se telling them, here's an easy trick and do this and do that. Really, what it came down to was managing expectations of a move, because I don't know about you guys, but Ruth and I have spent more times than we would like to admit or care to do in our sellers' homes. Actually, I've also helped, for my buyers, I've actually gone to their new houses and helped those sellers move out the day of closing. I distinctly remember. Or cleaning, yes. I've been pitching everything out of a refrigerator as a final walkthrough is happening. I have been carrying huge pots of dirt, basically, out of homes and to the edge of the house, or whatever, to get rid of it before my buyers have moved in. And it's just not because they're horrible sellers, right? It's just not understanding the effort needed. So we had to kind of explain that pretty much from before they start putting the house on the market is the time for them to start packing up.
Right? Manage the logistics.
Manage the logistics, right. Don't wait until you've decided that the house is actually going to close on, let's see, July 28th. Don't wait until clear to close to call and say, hey, we're leaving the last, we need you in 3 days, the last Friday of the month. Can you come on by? No. That's going to be laughed at. So basically, from the beginning, they need to be figuring out logistically how this is going to happen. And
things might work different in different markets. So I know in some markets, they actually don't even get possession until after closing. Sometimes it's funding, which sometimes takes, it's really kind of bizarre how some of these processes are so different across the country.
Correct.
It's my understanding, we fund while we're sitting there. The seller will walk away from the closing table with a check if they're there, or the proceeds will be in their bank. And that's, and then we give the keys to the buyer.
As the paperwork, as the final lending paperwork's being signed, as the final transfer of deed and all that stuff is happening, and title and whatever else. When all that's happening is when the funding happens, keys get done.
Yeah, so it's all within an hour or two. And we understand that in other parts of the country, things work differently. Sellers may still retain possession for a couple of days, things like that. It's everybody's got to have their own process for helping buyers and sellers understand what the process is there. So here we ask sellers to move completely out of their house the day before, really by the afternoon before. Oftentimes realtors like to do their final walkthrough the evening before, or even the afternoon before. I've had people ask for 10 o'clock in the morning the day before. I'm like, no, you are not getting that. But maybe 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock the day before. We like to do ours right before closing because we've had some incidents where terrible things happened and they could have happened overnight. So we think it's best to do it right before, but a lot of people do it the day before. Yes. So they need to be out. It needs to be clean. It needs to be broom clean according to our contract. So not a super high standard, but no couches left, no pianos, no ping pong tables. And not all of your extra spices that you didn't feel like moving. So
this is an Airbnb. You're not sharing your ketchup and your mustard.
So getting them to get all that out, getting them to clean it, sometimes hire cleaners, We strongly recommend hiring movers because we've seen that people trying to do it on their own oftentimes just can't do it quickly or efficiently enough. They need 2 trucks because they don't know how to pack one. So they need twice as much space as they would otherwise. And so it's kind of like the penny wise and pound foolish phrase where they're looking at the wrong thing. And so we try to help them understand this is not the way to save money. This is not the time to save money. And you're much better off doing all of this. Spend that money on a hotel room, spend the money on movers in a truck, and know that the process is going to happen smoothly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we talked about pre-packing. There's the idea of Ruth was talking about some statistics as far as when people are moving. I'm sure a lot of you get a lot of people who just want more space. They've outgrown their current location. Let's be honest, a lot of the times they've outgrown it because they've accumulated things that they need. Well, guess what? The sellers are also accumulating things and they're taking up all of their space. So really what we need to try to do, as I feel representatives of sellers, is to help our sellers present the house in orderly, clean, plenty of space fashion. Yeah. So, we have seasons up here. So we have winter clothes and boots and huge jackets and hats and this and that and the other thing. And then summer clothes, we have, and everything in between and all the layers. So if it's June, the amount of space that packing up all of those boots and coats and stuff like that creates, if they got those all packed up, that would probably lessen half of their closet space easily.
Yeah. And then on the way to doing that, you say, okay, my 5-year-old doesn't fit in these boots anymore. So they don't get packed. They need to get pitched or given away. And they have time to make some of those decisions if they're doing it and they're going through early on. Otherwise, they're moving everything to another house that doesn't need to go there.
Correct. So it's all, so we want them to kind of, and as Ruth said, we don't necessarily call it clutter because it's important to them, it's useful to them, or it's something that they have just in case. But really it's about helping them, get one step further, because the last thing we want are our sellers frantic and be have so much stress when they're closing this chapter. They should have some fond memories. It should be positive. And if we help manage their expectations and make them understand or help them understand, because once again, one of the reasons for us being realtors is that buyers and sellers don't have a lot of, most of the time have a lot of experience, and they might have done it several times. But still, it could have been 5 years ago. There's things that they forget. It's kind of like having a kid. You forget how the delivery is to an extent. You kind of remember it hurt, but oh yeah, that's it. And that's how, moving is, or things you only do a handful of times in your lifetime. You kind of forget some of those details.
Yep, exactly. And since we're, watching it all the time, over and over and over again,
and unfortunately, coming up with more horror stories or bad experiences to add to our repertoire of, we've got to remember to tell somebody this, and we have to remember to do this. Exactly. We're taking our 19 years of experience, combined to explain to them and help them better, handle their expectations of how this goes.
Yeah,
and how
I think that's one of the things as agents that we really, that's where a lot of our value is. People don't do this very often, and so they don't know how. Sometimes they think they know how and they're not that interested in listening to us. But if we can give them these pointers, help them understand, and help them with this up front. Don't wait until they're already frantic and behind and under the gun. So put into your processes as a realtor, start talking about pre-packing at the listing appointment. Start talking through the entire process at that time so they can begin to understand and have those expectations be realistic. Absolutely. So we will be off for the next few weeks, and we will see you probably end of August.
I don't know what our topic will be because it's been planned out for us all year.
Yeah.
Between the buyers, process and the sellers process. Now we have to come up with something. So if you have anything that you think is important to talk about, drop a comment, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
All right.